Hi everyone, today is session 5 of Granny Torrelli. This will be our second to last session of reading this book. So we are approaching the end of it. So we want to start to think about things like character development and if characters have changed at this point. We still have a couple chapters left to get our answers for those, but those are thoughts that we want to start having in our head as we continue to read in the book now, right? Because we're finally starting to move to the end of the book and we want to look back at the whole reading process. So this chapter is called Not So Fast. We just learned that there are two new boys next door who are representing the Marco in the story that Granny Torrelli is sharing, and that Bailey is now also having a bit of a jealous side as well. So not so fast. All the meatballs are in a pot, and Bailey is stirring. Are we done? He says. Granny Torrelli says, let's see. Cavatelli made and resting. Sauce and meatballs bubbling. Bailey takes off his apron. Well, he says, I guess I'll be going. My fox disappears. I don't want Bailey to go. Maybe Granny Torrelli senses this, because she says, wait a minute, Bailey boy, don't you want to hear the end of Violetta and Pardo and Marco? Bailey hesitates. He doesn't look too happy. Stay, Bailey, I say. You two can wash up the bowls while I talk, Granny Torrelli says. I wash, Bailey dries, Granny Torrelli talks. So, where were we? See, Marco, hanging around like the sick donkey, and me being enchanting. I am a little slow to figure that out, but pretty soon I realized that after my buddy, my pal, Pardo, has been seeing Marco hanging around my house, Pardo always comes over. He pays a little attention, tells me, Marco es stupido. So that's on page 130. I'm stopping and jotting because I think that Pardo, just like Bailey, was also a little jealous. Granny Torrelli shifts in her seat and props her feet. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong paragraph. Pardo is always coming over. Pays a little attention. Tells me Marco es stupido. I am washing the meatball bowl. And already I am translating Pardo into Bailey. And I smile. I stare out the window at the maybe twin boys, and I wonder if they will both find me enchanting, and if Bailey will tell me that they are stupido. Granny Torrelli shifts in her seat and props her feet. Now Violetta starts noticing Marco, she is saying. Oh, Marco, you're so smart, you're so handsome, you're so strong. Will you help me with this, and will you help me with that? I pass the meatball bowl to Bailey to dry. And I'm thinking, what? That Janine girl might set her sights on the maybe twin boys too? What a lot of nerve! And no kidding, just as I think this, I look out the window And there is bouncy Janine girl, bouncing down the street, waving at the new neighbors. My tiger self wants to leap through that window and pounce. Part of me wants to dash out the door and beat her to it. And part of me wants to stay with Bailey and hear about Violetta and Marco and Pardo. Bailey looks puzzled. I'm not sure why. He says to Granny Torrelli, "The web is getting very tangled." "Si, Bailey, very true." Granny Torrelli's voice softens. And then there was the Gattosi baby. "Who?" I say. My head is all jumbled, not able to concentrate as I see Janine bouncing along. And there she is right in front of the new neighbors. She is bending to cozy up with the little girl, smiling, tilting her head this way and that. I turn away, and I can't bear to watch. So we also just have a new character. We now have the Gattosi baby. This is page 132. 132. The Gattosi baby. Gattozzi. Granny Torrelli has a sad look on her face. The Gattozis, they live in our village. Very nice family, with a new baby girl. Most beautiful baby girl you ever saw in your life. But she got sick, very sick, and everyone was praying for her. I go to see the Gattozis. I take them zuppa from my mother. They let me see the little baby, very flushed in her basket. And I put my hand in the baby, grabs it, and holds on. Her fingers are so hot, and they hold very tight to my hand. So we just learned that the Gattosi baby is a baby who is sick that was in Granny's village. I also want to make a separate stop and jot because I agree with Bailey when he said on page 131 that the web is getting very tangled because Pardo and Granny Torrelli are friends, and then Pardo liked Violetta, and then Marco came in and Marco liked Granny Torrelli, but then Pardo didn't like that Marco liked Granny Torrelli, and then Violetta likes Marco, and blah, it's very confusing. So 131, tangled web. I sit beside Granny Torrelli and I take her hand. I am thinking, please don't let that baby die. It is quiet in the kitchen, with only the sounds of the bubbling sauce and the hum of the refrigerator. I sit with the baby, Granny Torrelli says. I sit all day long. She won't let go of my fingers. Her parents let me hold her, and still she is clinging to my fingers. And all the time I am sitting there with that sick baby. I am not thinking of Violetta, or Pardo, or Marco. I am only thinking, the baby must get better. The baby must get better. Bailey now joins us at the table. His expression is soft, gentle. His hand slips across the table and taps Granny Torrelli's wrist. She lets his hand stay there, while my fingers rest on her other hand. It is so quiet and so sad there in the kitchen, with all of our hands all on the table. Granny's wrinkly soft ones, and Bailey's strong ones, and my normal rosy ones. My final stop and jot for this chapter is going to be for page 133. I liked how Sharon Creech left us off with that chapter with the image of all their hands connecting, because I think that to me helps create the image of the web that's being really created, and the connection between these generations of people. Image of hands. Good way to end chapter. So tomorrow, for the last session of Granny Torrelli Makes Soup, we're really going to be thinking about if any of our characters have changed over the course of the story, and also thinking about how Sharon Creech is deciding to wrap this book up as she chose to write it. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow then.